Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and welcome to the Page Chewing Podcast. And I'm trying something a little different on this episode. Recently, I've been thinking more about poetry and an appreciation for poetry, and I feel like poets and poetry don't get enough credit, don't get enough attention for the art that they create. Poems can bring out a lot of emotions, and they can elicit different reactions, very powerful reactions in a very few amount of words. They're very difficult to write, and every word has weight. Every word has meaning. Every word has been carefully chosen for that purpose. So I wanted to discuss a poem from every now and then, and I mentioned it on the forum, and of course the great, wonderful people there were willing to talk poetry with me. So the first poem that we're going to discuss is a poem by Robert Frost, and it was just kind of picked just randomly. But the poem is "The Road Not Taken" by Robert Frost. So what I'm going to do is I'll read off the poem, and then we will go line by line, and I'll give you my reaction to different lines. And I'm by no means an expert. This is just me having some fun. After I explain my reactions, and hopefully you'll have time to maybe write down your own reactions or just mentally think about it, I will read off to you what Robert Frost said about this poem, because there's a difference with, I think, how all of us interpret this poem and what he intended. Not all of us interpret it, but I think how most people do. And I think it's very interesting how one person can read something and have a totally different takeaway from it. And I think it's just fun to do. And I will also be naming the poem for next week, or for the next episode that we'll be discussing. So during the week, if you have some time, read off this poem, and we will discuss it again next week. And of course, we have a new club on the forums over at pagechewing.com, and it's called Poetry Appreciation. So we have threads there for every poem, and we break down every line and just have a fun discussion. So there's also talk about us maybe tackling Dante's Inferno, and that may happen in the future, where that would be a long endeavor, but we're discussing it. So for this first episode, we will talk, let me get this right, "The Road Not Taken" by Robert Frost. So let's get to the poem. Now I will read the poem without any interruptions, and then, like I said, we'll go back and I'll give you my takeaways. "Two roads diverged in yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how long way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." So I will leave a link below, so you can, if you want to read the poem for yourself, and take time to break down all the different lines and break it down. So on the forum, had a couple of reactions from Paramita. Her reaction was mainly about choices and individualism, being a trailblazer by choosing a path less taken. Until we get to the first line of the last paragraph, and then I question whether this is really true, since it might just be self-justification, or what we call post hoc rationalization. Possibly both the roads are equally untraveled, and the narrator rationalizes their choice by telling it this way. Also, our friend Susanna Imaginario, "Choices and choices, life is all about choices. Two roads, one seems less traveled than the other, but is it though?" And we do talk a few, mention that the line, I shall be telling this with a sigh, this reads to me like regret. Also, our friend Varsha and Carl both commented on it. And the reaction to this is really interesting. So I will go section by section. The first line is, two roads diverged in a yellow wood. And I took this away as, and I didn't read any of the other reactions or read Robert Frost's comments on this poem, but that's read to me as faced with the decision but why is it yellow wood? Why yellow wood? The second line, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood. And that read to me as contemplated and considered with a path to take, making that decision alone, because ultimately we're all alone. From the poem, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. So peer down to predict or see what the future might hold, but the future is unknown for all of us. I think that read to me as the uncertainty of life. Like we look down, we try to predict what may happen, but we really don't know. And the second section of the poem, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. So this read to me as, took a chance, because it took the other as just as fair, and hoping it was the right choice, the path not taken last time, trying a new path, but the line had warned them really about the same. But is it a new path? Is it a new path or is it the same path? Don't know. Now the next section, and both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So this read to me as the first line with morning. I read that as morning. It's spelled morning like a morning of a day. So that spoke to me as maybe it's a new day, a new beginning. Or is it mourning with a U, like mourning, like, mourning something, the loss of something. The line, no leaves are trodden black, is black representing a wrong choice. Black is generally referenced as a, negative or bad. Something like no leaves are trodden black. That in leaves no step had trodden black. Had kept the first for another day. There's always tomorrow. There's always another time. Next time. That procrastination, putting off the hard choices or doing something different, and instead doing something that is familiar, even if it's the wrong choice. Even knowing if that choice leads to another choice, it's an endless cycle, and we're unwilling to try something new because we get so used to doing the same things over and over again, knowing that taking a different path may take us on a different route. We just do the same things over and over again. We doubted it because we know it's not the right choice, but the previous choices led us here, and will lead us back to the same place if we continue. So that tells me that we're just in this cycle of choices, of doing the same things over and over again, knowing that we'll be back at this crossroads. So the next line, or the last section rather, I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So this section, my takeaway was, should be telling this with a sigh, because we're in this cycle and we're worn out. We should be telling this with a sigh. I shall be telling this with a sigh because we're in the cycle and we're tired. Again, two roads diverged in wood, but why wood? Why is it wood? Why isn't it a path of something else? Why is the path wood? What's the significance of wood? And taking the path less traveled, with less uncertainty, it will lead us. If we take the path that is uncertain, maybe it'll lead us out of the cycle and out of old habits onto new paths that we haven't traveled yet. So my thoughts overall on this one: making the choice to take less paths, or take paths less familiar, or what we may consider a risk. The uncertainty of life and the unknown of where our choices will lead us. Making the choice to take that step on a new path makes all the difference. We're ending that cycle of back here again at this crossroads. So that spoke to me as the uncertainty and these choices that we make. How do we make those determinations? What do those determinations mean? That's how it spoke to me. I think for most of the people I've spoken with, that's generally the takeaway. But it was interesting because I found an article that mentions, and I'll leave the link below from The Guardian, and I'm reading from the article here. Noble, charismatic, and wise in the years since its composition, the road not taken has been understood by some as an emblem of individual choice and self-reliance. A moral tale in which the traveler takes responsibility for, and so affects, his own destiny. But it was never intended to read this way by Frost, who was well aware of the playful ironies contained within it, and would warn audiences, you have to be, quote, you have to be careful with that one. It's a tricky poem, very tricky. So this one carried a personal message for Frost. It was not intended to be what most people take away from it, which I think, he did not subscribe to the models of self-determination or the belief that the spirit could triumph over adversity. Something seemed to him ingrained or inevitable. How free-spirited his friend seemed in comparison. This American who sailed for England on a long shot, knowing no one and without no place to go, wrote his literary fortunes and won his prize, then set sail again to make himself a new home. None of this was Thomas. It isn't in me, he pleaded. So there's more context on the article, I'll link it below, but so this wasn't that kind of tale, which I think was really, it was really interesting because the takeaways are so different from this. So again, from the article, how can we evaluate the outcome of the road not taken? For another, he had the poet chosen the road more traveled by then that logically could have made all the difference. And in the case was subtly missed, Frost set traps in the poem intended to explode a more earnest reading. The two paths, he wrote, had been worn, quote, really about the same, unquote, and, quote, equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black, showing the reader that neither road was more or less traveled, and that choices may in some sense be equal. So very interesting. I love that. What, especially what I took away from it, was not the case. Was not what the author intended. It's a beautiful poem, and I think it's very thought provoking. And it was even more thought provoking after I read his intention with the poem. But I think that's what's great about art. That's what's so great about creating something, because people can, you take a picture, or you paint something, or you write a poem, or you create a sculpture, whatever it may be. You intend for it to be something because it's so personal and ingrained in you, and you create this from your imagination. You manifest it to reality, and you have a certain idea in mind, and what someone else walks along and looks at it, and what they take from it, they apply all of their preconceptions and all of their thoughts and all of their experiences. They bring that to the table, and they have a different perspective, and they bring different things to your piece of art. And I think that's great. I'm sure sometimes it's a little frustrating for some artists because you intend to elicit a certain reaction, but I think having a reaction at all is a good thing, because we all share this experience together, and we we have different reactions to different things. So I think it's just beautiful in a way that art has this ability to bring all these different emotions out of us and to elicit these kind of reactions. So I think it's really, really great. So that's that's my thoughts on that one. I will leave the links for the poem and for the article down below. And I encourage you to, if you want to, read the poem and kind of take it in and see what your thoughts are. And the next week, or for the next episode, we will be talking about another Robert Frost poem, and that is Acquainted with the Night. That's the one that we'll be discussing next. I will post that on the forum in our Poetry Appreciation Club. And, if you're there, come by and talk to us about it there, or, write down what your thoughts are and read along with me and bring your own perspective to the table. I'd love to hear from you if you are enjoying this. I think it's really great. So we'll see what the reaction is. I would love to keep doing this. I think it's really fun. So hopefully you enjoyed it and are willing to come back again and do this with me another time, whether it's next week or a week after. I hope to do this on a regular basis, but we'll see. So until next time, thank you for reading this poem with me. Thank you for the discussion.